Well, hi, baby. It is Father's Day, September 11th, 2021. September 11th, 2021. It's the first Father's Day ever on September 11th, and it's the first September 11th ever on Father's Day. September 11th is, I guess now, a national holiday. I would call it more a national Memorial Day. You'll learn in history books about September 11th, 2001, which was 20 years ago today. It's amazing how time flies. Time just passes. And you know, after it passes, you're like, where did that go? Where did that time go? It seems like just yesterday. It was 2001, September 11th. And it's funny, you'll read about that in history books, and you may not even understand it. It may seem very foreign to you, or like a long time ago to you, or like it's part of an older world to you, which it is. Very much like the JFK, the John F. Kennedy assassination was for me. I wasn't born yet when he was assassinated, and my parents were, my mom and dad, Diane and George, were alive, and they were young, and they remember that day very vividly. They remember the day that JFK, John F. Kennedy, was shot and killed. And I remember September 11th, 2001. I remember that. And I hope to, maybe as you get older, to tell you a little bit more about that day and what it meant for me and the world that I was living in at the time and the world that existed at the time. I mean that as a historian, and I mean that as your father, and I mean that as a citizen. The questions, you know, people said at the time on that day, well, you'll remember this day, you'll remember where you were and what you were doing for the rest of your life. And people will ask you later in your life, where were you? Where were you on September 11th, 2001? Where were you during the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon? And I remember where I was. I was living in West Lafayette. I was living off of Crestview Street there in West Lafayette, just on the river by Williamsburg on the Wabash. And I'd gotten back from Germany a couple years before that. I visited Germany in 1999 and had met some people over there. And he had one of the men I had met in Germany. His name was Jens Magasuper. And I had invited him to come and spend time in the United States, and he had never been to the United States, and I invited him to come visit the United States. And he actually landed the night of September 10th. His first night in America was, he landed at 9:50 p.m. on September 10th, 2001. And the next morning, he came to my home. He slept on my couch that night. We stayed up, you know, into the evening hours and enjoyed a good drink together and a good story and watched the sunset, his first sunset in America. And he slept in the next morning, and my phone rang at about 9:11, 9:12 in the morning, believe it or not. And it was my mother, your grandmother, it was Diane. And she's screaming on the phone. She says, "David, we're under attack. We're under attack. We're under attack. We're under attack." And I got up from my bed and was angry that I had slept in so late, and I didn't really understand what she was telling me, and I didn't believe her, and I thought, oh, Mom's being crazy. You know, I'm sure somebody's shot somebody, or, you know, a small crime, or maybe a small plane crash. And I run in and she goes, "No, turn on the TV." And I run in and turn on the TV to NBC, and I can see the World Trade Center, both towers are on fire. And Jens woke up. I woke him up, and he was terrified. It was the first time in the country. We were under attack. He had never been to America before, and this was our worst and most horrible and darkest, saddest day in a whole generation, maybe forever. And we turned on the TV, and then a few minutes later we saw Tower 2 fall to the ground. And then, of course, the next tower fell. We had memorials that night, church services. I think we went to 3 or 4. A bunch of friends came over and spent time, and we kind of huddled together. They stopped all air traffic, and for the next couple days we could sit outside and you wouldn't hear a single airplane. Most traffic on the roads, most cars stopped. Everyone was quiet and polite and friendly, and always watching their TV. I mean, every home that you drove by or walked by, and you'd look in the window and you'd just see TV on, TV on, TV on. Everybody was watching it. And so I was with Jens Magersuper, his second day in America, his first full day, his first morning in America. He woke up and witnessed those attacks. And we were a mixture of scared and shocked and proud in a way. It was a rough time. We went to a lot of different memorials, as I said, and so that's where I was. I was at Crestview by Williamsburg on the Wabash in West Lafayette, Indiana. My mother was the first one to tell me. She called me screaming on the phone saying we were under attack, and I walked into my living room and Jens was there sleeping. I turned on the TV and I saw the towers on fire, and he woke up and we watched the first tower fall. And that's what it was. That's where I was on September 11th. I was pretty impacted by that. I was young. I was proud. I was full of patriotism. And I think some of the responses of the U.S. in the last 20 years have been good. And I think some of the responses of the U.S. for that day could have been better. Those are difficult to talk about, and difficult things to know what is right and what is wrong at any time. And history always gives us the ability to look back and say, well, that wasn't really good, or this was good. But on the personal level, that's where I was at. So that you know where your daddy was at. On September 11th, he was at Crestview by Williamsburg on the Wabash in West Lafayette, Indiana on September 11th, 2001 with his German friend Jens Magersuper, who had just arrived in the United States. And my mother had called me that morning and had obviously found out that we were under attack, and she called me to tell me that, and I went and realized it myself. So September 11th, 2021, 20 years ago. How fast 20 years passes. 20 years from now, I assume you'll be 21 years old, 22 years old, and studying all of this, or having studied all of it. So there you have it, from where your daddy was on September 11th, 2001. It wasn't Father's Day back then, but it is this year, September 11th, 2021. In remembrance and while thinking of you, happy Father's Day.